And then I just wanted to talk about kind of the rise and fall again, and the idea that like when you were when you come from traumas or you're coming from poverty, there's like a pattern that you're in, and it's hard to like break that pattern, and then you think that you've maybe broken the cycle, but then you can fall back into it, like because you're always, when you come from those traumas, it's like you're always healing from them, or you're always, trying to break that cycle. Like you don't stop breaking the cycle. Like it's not like, oh, it's broken now. Like this is
It's
your life.
perpetual motion, right? It's a never ending perpetual motion that you have to just keep moving forward, keep plugging in, and keep strong willed with, right? In order to continue to stay out of that cycle.
Mhm. So I used to end up at your house, Kim's, because like my dad was like, he was a single dad and just dealing with addiction, and poverty and his own mental health. And he used to be like mean to me. So I'd be at Kim's because Kim's house was like really welcoming. So when I got through, I was already living on my own, and I got through high school and I got through college. I thought I had it all figured out. I was 21 years old, and I was like, yeah, I went straight from high school to college. I have a college diploma now. Like anything I do, I felt like I had made it. I broke the cycle, and it was good to feel good about that. Um, but I wasn't really like protecting myself, and I didn't understand healthy relationships. So I moved away with a man that was 4 years older than me, from Sault Ste. Marie to, and I know it's only 4 years, but still, it's relevant when you're 21.
Yes.
And so I moved from Sault Ste. Marie to Hamilton, and I went to McMaster University, and I did not graduate from there, but I went there for a year. And I was in an abusive relationship where I had to ask permission to leave the house, and I wasn't allowed to have certain people on social media, and I wasn't allowed to talk about the abuse at home, and I was being cheated on, and
Like we weren't even allowed to talk about the abuse together, you and I, in secret conversations on whatever kind of social media that we were using at the time. Like
it'd be
you
like
would like
convo.
it would be like once a month, and I would get like this whole spiel of an update, and they'd be like, oh shit, I gotta go because he's back or whatever, right? Like we couldn't,
I
there
was
was a
literally
big
hiding.
disconnect with your sources for your mental health even at the time.
Wasn't allowed like friends over at the house, things like that. So I lived for 2.5 years in Hamilton with this man. And during that time, I became pregnant and had a miscarriage at 12 weeks. So that's 3 months pregnant. So that's like, enough in there that, like, I don't know. I'm not comparing weeks and trimesters, and we're not getting into that, but I felt it, and it hurt, and it was my mental health, and I had to go through that alone, in
And
the
completely
hospital.
alone, completely
Completely
alone.
alone. He wouldn't leave work. He worked for an MPP there. He wouldn't leave work, even though I know now he totally could have, especially with that kind of job, to come and support me through that miscarriage. I'm 28 years old now. I was 22 then. And it's the only pregnancy that I've ever had. Like I still have not ever, not that I'm trying, I'm definitely not, but not become pregnant. So it was a really big pivotal point in my life as a woman. And I was left alone for that. So after that happened, I wanted to move back home, but I was still breaking the cycle, and I didn't know it. So I got sucked back in by my abuser, and we moved to Sudbury for another 2 years. And I lived with, maybe closer to three, probably, in Sudbury. And I lived with my partner there, where they continued to abuse me, and I wasn't allowed to have friends over, and I had to work and pay bills, because if I didn't, I would be like ostracized, because could never make as much as my
Had
um,
to pay excessive bills and wasn't able to use her own money or come home for a visit, wasn't allowed to have friends, wasn't allowed to.
like, yeah, he was financially extorting me. It would take all
Yes.
my money so I couldn't go anywhere.
Well, and then taking all of your credit with the other projects that ended up being like your ideas, your willpower, your effort put into all of those projects, and then they were stolen as well. So like there was
Thank you.
a lot of abuse in many, many ways.
Yeah.
And it was heartbreaking because couldn't be there for you. You had to do it by yourself.
Yeah. So and I just want to shout out, I do want to get into some of the good things that's happened with organizing, but I wanted to pass the mic to my friend and sister CONiKA, because I know CONiKA has been in similar situations where she has been abused by men. So I just wanted to validate you and your strength.
Yeah, I relate to that 100%, but not so much with just one person, right? Because you think you're breaking the cycle by leaving one, and then you just kind of like don't do any personal work, and you fall right back into it with another one, right? So for me, it was a series of really um, emotionally and mentally abusive relationships. Because like if anybody ever got physical with me, like that was my moment where like, okay, they hurt me and I have a history with self-harm. So if anything got to the point where I would self-harm, that was where I knew like I can't be around this person anymore because they've gotten me to the point now where I'm comfortable self-harming, and I like that. It's got to be over. It's got to be done. So it took a long time of going through that cycle and like running from myself essentially, because like oddly enough, the things that freaked me out the most and hurt me the most about the people that I was with were the things that I wasn't healing in myself.
Things you were allowing upon yourself, right?
Exactly, these like lack of connections and like this lack of sincerity for certain things, and just like because I hadn't had like full-time father figures in my life. I had a stepdad, but he was military, so he was gone oftentimes more than half the year, up to 10 months of the year. And it was my mom, like being financially provided for. So we had all the material things, we had pets, we had food in the fridge, but like it was just emotionally negligent. And that's like, I completely understand my mom because she was a cycle breaker too. She didn't come from a good place. She was raised in poverty in Sault Ste. Marie on a farm and had addicted parents. And she was the first person in her family to graduate college. So, like,
Good for her. That's right.
Mhm.
go mama.
Yeah.
Your moms.
Mhm.
So, like, yeah, she did the best she could. I learned some really, like, just absent ways of loving and, like, some really misconstrued ways of, you know, showing that I cared for myself, right? And like being selfish and doing things like stealing and what I thought was providing for my kids and my family. And it was just really doing more harm than good because it always created more of a problem for me to run from. So as far as the escaping abusive relationships went, it really stopped when I decided that I was important. Like I matter more than these fucking people's feelings. Like, and through those relationships, I kind of like developed this understanding that like the phrase "I'm sorry" doesn't fix everything, like at all. And it,
At some
unfortunately,
point, it just
to the
becomes
point where
words.
it's just like stop. I can't hear that phrase from certain people in like a really heated situation because it'll make me blow up. I'll be like, nah, dude. Because like it's action, and it's got to be inside. Like if you're apologizing for something, then you've got to want to make it better, want to make amends, and not just want to save face. So I learned a lot
I feel
through
you.
going through all of those relationships, and like the longest one was with my second daughter's dad, and people like my own friends, because we were all addicts and we were all like party animal types, and we had like been friends for a long time before we got together. They hadn't realized that like I was in such a dark place with this guy because this is just who he is. Oh, he's just aggressive. He's just an asshole. He's our, that's just
Like
how
that's
he
what you
is. He's
signed
just
up for, girl. That's what you knew you were getting into.
This
I was
is the
like,
life you
nah,
chose.
because like it's way worse than what you guys see behind closed doors. And he'll like, so yeah, I ended up having to cut off the majority of my friends group and just like really pour time into the things that made me feel good. So like these organizing community events and any ideas that I had that were giving back to people that, you know, like people in need, like we had talked about, we're soft inside. We appreciate all those little things and just like having a roof over our head and food in our stomach. But
You
like
need
those
it.
little things mean so much more.
Yeah.
Like that's what my heart's in. That's what I want to do is just give those little extra things that make people feel like, gosh, shit, man, you didn't have to do that, but like, thanks.
Okay.
Right?